All right, take two. Good morning. I thought I was live, but I'm not. Hopefully, I am now. Uh, Good morning, or if you're watching this later, um, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. I thought that I would go live this morning and talk about what I was working on in terms of preparing for my next auction. So, essentially, what I'm doing is I'm creating yet another spreadsheet. Um, and that's just kind of the way things are right now with me. Everything I think about with comics and tracking and analysis, I've got to build out a spreadsheet for everything. So, what I've been developing right now is more of a maybe like a 2.0 of my existing auction tracker. And I'm focused right now on HipComic auctions because I've had a great experience with a couple of sellers on the platform and have really been spending more time, I think, on HipComic than maybe some areas where they're more static online stores, right? That places like Atomic Avenue and other stores that I buy from. Um, so one second. There we go. Okay, just checking my settings. All right. So the point of all of this is I'm going to go ahead and share out the items that I'm looking at with the current HipComic auction that's ending tonight. Tonight being December 11th, 2022. As just kind of like an example, kind of a little bit of prototyping with this level of tracking. So let's get to it and start looking at what kind of information I'm starting to gather here. Collector auctions. Good morning. Thanks for joining. You were somebody that came to mind when I was kind of going over this and putting it together because I know uh, you do a lot of shopping, let's say, browsing, I'm sure, at places like Heritage and things like that. So this sort of analysis can certainly be applied to really any auction, eBay, anywhere, honestly. Trying to think of the others, Comic Link. And essentially, what this is it's combining the specific CGC graded values of comics that I continually gather every day, and then looking at auctions. And as much as I would love to automate all of this, right, it'd be great to say here's a heritage auction, like the whole thing, and run it through some sort of engine or analytical tool and have it spit out like, hey, these are the best books, or this is the best price, this is the best book with the lowest bid. Like that would be the ultimate, right? But there's a lot of still manual effort, I think, that you want to put into any sort of auction analysis where you have to just assess the book. Like if you're going for slabs, that's a whole other thing. So I guess I should state that too. This is for raw books. I much prefer to bid on raw books where I feel like there could be an improvement, a clean and press of some sort, and hope to get it way undervalued. So let me talk again. I think specifics are better than me just rambling about my thoughts or what's rolling around in my head. So let's look at the auction. This is Quality Comics, and I was looking at. I was starting to kind of just scroll through the books. It's listed in alphabetical order. For better or worse, it is what it is. And you're looking at this going, you just start eyeballing things like what's appealing to you. Alpha Flight number one appeals to me. Okay, maybe I favorite it. Oh, well, if I'm bidding on Alpha Flight number one, maybe I go 19. Look at these Silver Age books, Amazing Adventures. And then you just start to spin out of control a little bit like, well, you can't bid on all of them. I mean, sometimes I do, or it feels that way. But you want to be more selective and really start to not only pick out the specific books that you want to bid on, but also is it worth it? And what I was getting at with the manual effort is you do, as a collector, you have to look at the book. You have to kind of pull up the scan. You have to do your best guess based on this digitized scan. This seller, Quality Comics, like I said, I think I've participated in 3 auctions now. I've opened one, I've graded one, I've got another one here, and then I've got a third one on the way. Sounds like I'm talking about children. But anyway, it's the books that I've received. I think I mentioned in my unboxing, it's like the quality of Mile High Comics, right? Where you're like, it looks great. I hope I could get it up to a 9.8 if I could give it a little bit of comic book CPR. And then you kind of get it in hand and you're looking at like, well, I couldn't quite see this on the scan, or I missed this little tear on the back. And you're kind of in the 8.592 range. And that's kind of the general assessment with Mile High. So what does all that mean in terms of how you want to approach an auction and how you want to bid? Even if you're on Heritage and you see something marked 6.0 fine, you still need to look at it. And a lot of times they'll overgrade a book or undergrade, and you look at the back and there's a bunch of staining or foxing or something, and you just don't, they didn't see it, you didn't see it, or maybe they just misgraded it. So again, this is the human element. Now, for this particular example, I think it was, ASM 186. Fantastic cover here. This has been homaged many times, especially recently. But very cool. So what do I do here? Like, you're looking at it going, well, I just know that this book is valuable in high grade, right? You kind of like, you're using your comic book knowledge to jump in and like, why did I even click into that? It's a recognizable cover for me in the ASM first volume. So I click into it using my own comic book experience, and okay, now what? I'm looking at the details. There really aren't many details. The seller does not list the condition anywhere. So what is my next step? Well, you might think that the next step is to bid like $3 for that book, which again, looking at a scan from pretty far away, sure, that looks like a 9.8 all day. This book, we'll go over the numbers here in a second, but this book is several $100s in a 9.8. So I'll bid $20, or I'll bid $327, or this is how I think most folks approach an auction, where you just kind of eyeball it and say, looks good, I want it, and you sort of generalize a bid or an opening bid, or maybe you throw in your max, or maybe a max that you're comfortable with. So I was thinking about just, how does somebody sit down and start working on an auction in their head without information, right? Maybe you've got some sources up on another monitor or on your phone, and you're just kind of like looking back and forth and trying to figure out, okay, this is the amount. Hey Kev, bid $4.20. I think that's always a solid strategy. Just every single book, $4.20. Go for it. The thing with HipComic, in all seriousness, what's very interesting, the difference between this and eBay, when you go to the bid history, it has a bunch of asterisks. If you don't own the item, if you own the item, you can see some bidding information. But typically, eBay hides the bidder. What's interesting about HipComic is you sign in, where is it? History. You can see the amount and the bidder. So if I know that somebody comes in and likes to bid $4.20 and they're the high bidder, but the item is at 301, it would show them at 301, but I know they're 420, and then I would bid 425. So anyway, yes, also maybe you just do that. Maybe you pick a title or an era, and you don't have to go into all of this craziness, and you just blast the entire auction with your bid, and then you cross your fingers and you hope you win. And that has happened. That served me well with some of these, where I did look later and I was like, oh, I won way too many auctions, because what I thought was a decent bid, maybe kind of a mid-range bid, actually ended up winning. Again, I could talk about this all day, but we're here for spreadsheets and data. And what is the goal here? The goal is for a consumer of this information to say, tell me what I should bid, right? Because that's really the question here. We've been staring at this auction. How do I know how much to bid? What's appropriate in today's market, past data, and so forth? So let's get into it, get into those numbers and those details. So if you want to nerd out on spreadsheets and formulas, you've come to the right place. Amazing Spider-Man 186. Again, no other details. We don't have the year. We don't have anything. We've got a picture and some basic information. So there is some manual effort that has to take place. So the first thing I do, going back to the spreadsheet just for a moment, is I have to generate what I call this unique issue ID. It's not necessarily a database ID or a GUID of some sort. It's a string that I've come up with where I can uniquely identify a comic across the board, because in theory, there should not have been a title or series, issue number, release year, and variant combination where there's more than one. Like that should be the unique way to identify it. So you do have to come up with that, and I've come up with it already. So you can always borrow my structure to, again, uniquely identify a comic. And this is kind of that unique string or indicator that I use across all of my spreadsheeting madness. So I have some hidden fields here just to preserve some space, but I'll expand it here just so you can see. So what I do is I end up putting the title, the issue, the release year, and the variant. And then the unique issue is a string concatenation of these columns right here. So the concatenation of these four generates the unique issue. And then I've cloned it over here in column A, again, just because I like the layout a little bit better over there. So let me go ahead and hide these again. So if you see me like copying and pasting, you're like, where's this data going? It's floating into these hidden fields here. Actually, I hit the wrong ones. I do need a placeholder there, so I'll hide those. So when we start looking at other books, I'm going to paste in the title here, and then we'll start to auto-generate some of the information, and it will also go out to my values, my buying analysis sheet, and grab the values. So that's how I'm going to say, okay, here is the actual auction item itself. This is the one we're looking at, so I'm capturing this link. And this is helpful later, especially like if you do your homework that morning of the auction or the day before, and then you decide to leave for the day. Do you want to set up all your bids before you go and then cross your fingers, or are you going to open up your phone when you're probably supposed to be talking to your family or participating in some other life event, and you're going to go ahead and open up your phone and you have all of this information on the road, which is, again, why I love Google Sheets versus Excel, is because I can pop open this auction tracker. I can press on the link on my phone. It will spawn this window. And again, the goal here is the column Q, R, and S. So what was my opening bid? What is kind of like a soft bid? Like, boy, I'd love to win this book at this amount. And then really, what's my max? And the column S, I think, is the most important, because if you go over the max, then you're assuming your own risk at that point. And that's what we want to avoid. As much as we have an emotional attachment to comics, we don't want to get caught up in the emotions of bidding. So that's what these columns, these are sort of your own personalized auction assistant or concierge, where it's like, okay, I'm going to tell you kind of where and what ranges you want to be in for an auction. And if you go over, you're on your own. You're more than, if it's a book you love, an ASM 186, and there's something about this book, right? And you've been kind of cheating and not listening to me. You've also seen column D and column F, and I'll explain that in a moment. But if for some reason you're looking at this and you're assessing it and you're like, I don't see a thing wrong with it. The spine looks crispy, the corners look sharp, the colors look great. What am I missing here? Because this book looks amazing. I'm going to go ahead and act accordingly. And these numbers that are supposed to keep you, from going out of bounds, if you go over them, then you're kind of on your own. So the spreadsheet is trying to keep you honest with the values and the market and so forth. So, and I probably won't go into a lot of the details in terms of how the numbers are calculated, because I think that's a whole other conversation that I need to have in terms of how do I come up with values. But essentially what I'm doing is I'm aggregating averages across multiple sources. So I know a lot of people, they love cover price, they love GPA, they love go collect, they love looking up eBay last sold, whatever their process is. But I take all of that and kind of put it together and come up with average values, because I feel like I don't want an outlier screwing with me and my data if GPA either did or did not include a sale. So I figure if I have multiple sources, I can take the average and off we go. All right. So let's finish this example and then we'll start assessing some of the other books that I've seen. So back to the auction. I can click on the image here. The images are not as good as Heritage. With Heritage, I mean, it's a crazy high resolution image that you're zooming in on, and it gets like right in your face, and it's crazy. I mean, you can get into all of the details. Now, that's very helpful with raw books, I think. Slabs, you know, you're kind of trusting CGC for better or worse that the grade is what it is. So you just kind of look at the grade and the page quality. With this quality auctions, for the most part, there's an occasional slab, but really I just focus on raw books here. So this is the image, the best image that you're going to get, you know, where you can't do that zoom in, zoom out on this image unless you do it here and you can kind of roll over it like this. So I kind of do both. What I do is I pretend that the book is here in front of me and I give it kind of my first assessment. So just kind of at a high level, I'm looking at this book and I'm like, yep, miswrapped, but again, not affecting the grade. Staple positioning is okay. This one looks pushed a little bit, but for the most part, it's all right. Cover falling off just slightly, so maybe this book isn't going to have any detached staple situation, so I'm not too concerned with it because of the age. Again, and I'm just looking at a computer screen. My monitor might be dirty, right? That's another problem. Do you actually clean your computer? Do you clean your desk? It's a whole other problem or process there, but kind of dumb advice, but make sure your monitor's clean, because if your monitor's all spotted, like if you're a coffee lover and you're drinking coffee and you do a spit take because you see ASM 186 for $3 and you can't believe it, now you spit all over your monitor and it looks like there's foxing all over the book. So first assessment looks pretty good. If anyone in the chat is kind of following along with me, I'd love to get your best guess, again, because we're guessing here, right? We don't really have the book in hand to make a formal assessment, but would love to get your guess. You kind of saw on this one what I kind of gave it. So I'll give you a moment if you didn't see it, just to kind of put in the chat if you want to, as far as what you think this is. Now, of course, we have to look front and back. Here's the back of the book. You know, I can see right there, there's something above the M. And I can also tell just from kind of taking a step back that there's something going on with the back cover. It's just, there's some very, very slight tanning or dirt on the back of the book. It also could be, as you can see here, you can kind of see Spider-Man coming through and bleeding through the back cover as well. So that's part of it too, is it dirt? Is it very, very light staining, foxing, or tanning? Or is it just the art coming through the back cover, right? So again, it's just a picture. It's just an image, a computer image. So you have to guess. Now, what I've been doing is I want to guess what is the book currently and what do I think it would max out as. This book, if we go back, and again, that's the general assessment. Now, if we really want to get into it, this is where you can hover over. So let's look at the corners. That corner looks sharp, right? And you're just kind of going through it. And the other thing, time is money too. So I don't want to spend all day on one book. I'm spending a lot of time on this one just to kind of show you what the process is in detail, but then you also have to cut some corners and generalize and do some things. So the goal is spend more time assessing the book and less time trying to figure out what to bid and, you know, opening other screens and things to figure out what the value is. But continuing on, I don't see any spine ticks, right? That corner looks like it may have a little bit of an issue, but I like it. Nothing down there, just maybe a little bit of overlapping, but I mean, pretty strong. Again, if I'm thinking, okay, maybe there's just something going on, and with the back, and as I dig in, you can see right there, just, I mean, I think I'm counting like 3 or 4 dots, or now I'm seeing even more. So I do feel like there's just some level of initial dirt or filth or foxing going on with this book. And then as I zoom in on the back spine, I do feel like there's going to be some hidden spine ticks that need to be dealt with a press or a tack iron. Not sure yet. But I see something here where I'm concerned based on the back cover. And I will say that with Quality Comics, that's 100% consistent with their books. The front looks amazing, and there's something going on with the back cover. And that back cover pushes the book down into that 8.5 to 9.2 range, which is, I didn't see any guesses in the chat, so I'll go ahead and throw it out there. So, spoiler, I gave it a 9.2 because this corner down here and some other things. I'm going to check the chat for a second. Collector Auction says, one of the reasons I use heritage auctions is the photos, especially for raws, and their grading seems to fall on the conservative side. Yes, I would totally agree with that. The drawback to that is you pay for it, right? And I talk about this too. I don't mind paying for a service like the ability to zoom in and get those high resolution scans and photos and have access to that as a bidder. And as Rusty said, the grading falling on the conservative side, yeah, that's valuable. that helps the bidder. I have experienced the same thing where I have, I typically on Heritage target 6.0 RAWs, and they'll come back and they're either around the 6.0 or I'm like, nope, this is a 7.75. I think I just got a book graded that I had to send back for a mechanical error, but it was a Fantastic Four. Forget the issue number. I can see it in my mind. It was that all red, not all red, but mostly red Kirby cover. It was absolutely gorgeous. Not a key book, and I think I got an 8.5, and I bought that in a 6.0 stack. Yeah, fees are big, but it's part of the analysis. Absolutely. So that's the trade-off, and I think that your average collector does not participate in heritage auctions because it's too expensive. But you have to look at the values and the benefits. So I totally agree. And that's why on HipComic, I am not investing in or spending as much as I would on heritage for those reasons, because you're not getting any sort of guesstimate on the grade from the seller, which in heritage, everything is graded. Raws and slabbed all have a grade. So that's the first thing, is like, okay, that's I already start to think about how I'm going to scale my spending down on HipComic because I'm not getting the same level of service or analysis. 100% agree. And I'll go into those details on how I do that. So just to finish off the assessment, why did I give it a 9.2? I'm a little scared here. I don't know what this dirt is, but this is going to need a cleaning of some kind. And, can you get foxing and staining completely out? I mean, if you're a mad scientist, possibly. If you want to give it a bath, maybe. But now you're talking a lot of time. So for me, down here too, like, what is that down in the bottom left? Like, that, just some things that worry me, even though from the front cover, I'm like, wow, this is a gem. This looks, I always say looks amazing when it's Amazing Spider-Man, and I need to come up with some other word. But very, very clean. The trade looks pretty good. And again, when I'm doing this, I've got how many couple of hundred books here in this auction to go through. I'm not spending, we've already been here for, 20, 25 minutes. I'm not spending this per book, believe me. Typically, I'll just kind of go like this, and I just touch the four corners. I go along the spine here, do that. Okay, maybe give it like a 30 to 60 second assessment. And I can tell, like I said, I will click on this image and go, yep, it just looks discolored in some way. And then just as I'm looking at 10 books, 100 books, 1,000 books, and then also combining the data that I get from the seller, I can just tell. Okay, so that is sort of the whole proof of concept where I've given it an assessed grade. I had to abbreviate it here just to kind of, again, fit all the data on the screen. So the AS grade, 9.2. And then I do feel like if I could send it off for professional cleaning and pressing, I think it maxes 9.8. If that back cover is super white or even off-white in a way, but clean, I don't see anything wrong with it. I think if that book, if the back were properly cleaned and that book got a press, why wouldn't it be a 9.8, right? And I'm being honest. So I put in this range, and this is important too, because a lot of times you're coming in here, you got 20 minutes to look at some auctions. You go, oh, that ASM 186, I remember that book. It looked good. Well, now you've looked at 50 other auctions. You're not going to remember later on when this auction is about to close, like, oh, what were the books? Oh, I remember I liked the 186, but what was wrong with it? You start to get lost and confused. You have to really keep track of this stuff. So this is the range, essentially, that I came up with, where I've got an AS grade and then an AS graded value, which has this lookup formula that goes out and says, what is the CGC value of this book in my assessed grade? Now, I don't plan on getting the book as is, looking at it going, yeah, I think it's a 9.2. Off to CGC it goes. The reason that I need this value is to build in the risk, the risk tolerance, and again, I talk about it like a safety net or blanket or of some kind, and it's like, what if I can't get it to a 9.8? What if the 9.2 really is the actual grade? I need some sort of floor to begin with to understand, okay, this is the risk if I want to engage in this item. And again, we're not talking about a Hulk 181 here. We're using a very nice copy of ASM, but a very affordable book as an example. These numbers can scale, obviously, for Amazing Fantasy 15 or any comic book. As long as it has value, right? I mean, I'm not gonna bid on an ASM from the, what was it, like the Nick Spencer run. I'm not gonna put that in here and figure out, should I bid 50 cents, 60 cents, 70 cents? Again, what's worth your time here? And these books, these bronze, early copper, like ASM, this is the stuff that I collect, and they're old enough where there's lots of data, lots of sales data, lots of trends and things to look at. So I've got the 9.2, the assessed grade value, and then what does this book max out at? I think it has the potential. It could be a 9.8. Rip me apart in the chat if you're like, there's no way that you can clean that book into a 9.8. That's fine. It's all good. You have to start somewhere and do something, right? So that's kind of what I'm talking about. So here's the max grade, and the max grade value in a 9.8 of this book is $312.50. And again, it's probably the 0.5 because it's averaging across a couple of sources, taking the average. And that's a pretty substantial range. So what I think about when I see those two values is, what is it going to cost me to get it from column E to column G? Well, grading fees, pressing fees, things like that. So here in my data, what I do is I put some static placeholders. This is typically what it costs me on average to get a book graded at the cheapest, slowest tier possible. So I don't send any books express. So that's roughly what it costs me. Clean and press fee. This one I don't have a precise number with. A little teaser for future content. I've got a couple of orders that are in CGC's hands right now, and the books are scheduled for grading where I've sent them off to other pressers, and I cannot wait to put together kind of an end-to-end video around that process. The presser fees without shipping have ranged from $8 to $15. There's two pressers I use. They charge me $15, and one presser charged me $8. So again, just kind of ballpark average, not quite precisely down to the penny, but I put $15. And then average shipping per book, you do have to pay for shipping on these. I don't really know what it is. It really depends. I kind of just, if I put $2, which sounds like a lot, but you know, if you're going to win 3 to 5 books in an auction, you're probably going to spend about $10 to have it shipped. The last auction, I won't tell you how many books I won, but it was around like 60 cents per book to ship. So this one, again, maybe not perfect, but I just figured $2 to have the book shipped to you it's fair enough if you're looking at one book. Again, if you're like, hey, I'm in the market to buy 100 books today, obviously the shipping per book is going to be less, but I just needed to do that. So what I've done with my my auction analysis here is I've figured out, okay, based on all of that, if my intent is to get this book and have it dealt with by somebody else, meaning they're going to clean it, they're going to press it, they're going to grade it, they're going to slab it. I'm not going to do any of that. So if you are going to do it, then you could invest more in the book. But again, this is kind of the general idea. And would you charge yourself $15 to press this? That's also something else I'd love to talk about someday. Is there's a great benefit and a feeling of self-satisfaction if you're pressing your own book and you can improve it and you put it in a whitening chamber and humidity chamber and what other comic book dungeons you put your books in. And, you know, 18 days later, after 5 days of cold pressing, you've got a book that you move from a 9.2 to 9. Super, super satisfying. Totally get that. But what could you have been doing, you know, besides that? And was all that time worth $15? That's what I'm trying to wrap my head around right now. So, you know, put whatever number you want in the data. Maybe it's $25, maybe it's $50, whatever. At some point, you do kind of price yourself out of books, and that's what I'm trying to figure out is if I'm going to have a book professionally cleaned and graded, and I'm going to send it off to CGC, is it even worth bidding on? That's the other thing. So this book as sort of my, well, I don't know how to it's definitely a proof of concept, but I'm trying to move the bars and move the ranges, and I started with this one, so I may have to make some adjustments just to get the formulas correct with my algorithm. But again, a huge, detailed, long-winded response to just like, can we just talk about these columns here, right? So eventually, that's the goal: is that you can take all of this that I talked about, throw it out, and just look at column Q, R, and S, the bid min, bid target, and bid max, and move on with life. And that's the whole point. You want quick access to these numbers and so on. So for this book, in order for it to have value and have it make sense for me, I would throw up an opening bid of $5.16. I would try to win this book for around $10, right? But I absolutely would not pay more than $16.53. That's because of everything I just talked about. Because if I were to pay for professional services on this book and hope to get the book back in a high grade, there's all of these fees and costs involved and time. It's only worth it if you stay within these ranges, right? So hopefully that makes sense at this point. If it doesn't, or if you have questions, drop them in the chat for sure. Off to the right, I don't want to get into too much detail around all of the various calculations because I do feel like it's a little boring. But in column U and V, I also want to understand what is the raw book value, and I do add that a little bit into the calculation in terms of what is the range of this book if I were just to go on eBay and just buy it blindly. It's about $8 to $14 if you get it from eBay. I don't have examples of the book actually being out there to show you because I'm using cover price for that. So I just assume some of their work is in the ballpark of being accurate. So it's an $8 to $14 book. So actually what's interesting is the bid min, bid target, bid max. Yeah, it's about right. So I think we'll see examples here in a moment where I'm not right or I'm out of bounds. But this one I thought was interesting because cover price is completely separate from my formulas here. So it was kind of neat to see that it does line up. So I'd say maybe even the raw HV, which just stands for high value, is a little undervalued here because you can actually bid up to $16.53. Okay. The other thing I do track is I just want to make sure it's not available anywhere. So if it were, and I don't track a ton of sources, I'm looking at Mile High Comics, Atomic Avenue, maybe a couple of others. And if this book is available just to buy outright near mint, maybe I consider that. I want to make sure I'm not bidding over a price that's available on the internet somewhere. Certainly, if your source is your LCS, that's great. Use that. Like, hey, I see 186 up on the wall at my LCS for $10. Then don't bid 16. Go back to your LCS and grab it for 10. That's the point of that. Is just making sure that we're not, bidding against ourselves here. So lots of formula calculations that I do here, and I separated them out just so I could make sense of them later. I'm not going to go over each one. But anyway, so that's kind of the thing. And then I do come up with a bid max actual, which is, so the actual max bid is $20.66 for this to make sense. But what I end up doing is, so column S, it takes that actual bid max, and I add these percentages to, essentially come up with a value that makes sense to me. So my opening bid, I want it to be 75% off the max. The target is maybe about half. And then, hey, who doesn't love a deal? I love getting great comic books. I love collecting. I love getting books in high grade. But I love a deal, and I want a deal. So how much of a deal do you want? You can make this adjustment. So if you're like, hey, listen, I love that bid max calculation. I don't need anything else off. I'm just going to go ahead and use that. Well, I just set it to 0, and the bid max jumped to 2066. And if you're like, no, I'm good with maybe there's a tax. I'm at a convention, or I'm bidding somewhere that does have an additional tax, or that buyer's premium that comes with heritage, and you just want to say, you know what, I want to see something off that max. Let me see here. Then you can make those adjustments. I went with 20%. I'd love to see a 20% discount. I think that that's totally fair, and that's where I came up with that 1653. So now we get to bid. And again, I'm thinking more in reality. If you're sitting on some sort of streaming platform and you got a lot of hype bros in there hyping up a book, telling you, oh, it sells for this, it sells for that. You don't have a lot of time. You're not allowed to put a bid max in, or you don't want to. You kind of have to figure out how you want to play this. For me, I've got a nice day ahead of me. I've got things I need to do later in the day. I may or may not be able to come back to this auction, right? So something else you have to think about. Do I plan on coming back now 7 hours from now and participating? Maybe. I might be able to. So you know what? I'm just going to start with my min, and let's put in $5.16. So we'll place the bid, confirm it, and I'm the high bidder. And I'm the high bidder right at that amount. So that means that whoever was behind me right here, this guy bid $5. So now also, I'm not going to track this, but just in the back of my mind, if this bidder is running through a bunch of other ASMs, he's probably slapping $5 like Kevin was doing. So Kevin's in there putting 420, this guy's putting 5. So now I know, okay, this guy's bidding $5. Again, just food for thought, something to put in the back of your mind. But here it is. They put 5, I put 516, and I got it. With HipComic, you see this green label here, high bid. You're the high bidder. It's red if you're outbid, and so on. And then you're able, just like Heritage or eBay, you can now see a list of these elsewhere that shows you the books that you bid on. All right, I'm going to take a little breather here. If anybody has any questions about this in the chat, throw it out there. Looks like we've got about 7 viewers online. If you're not in the chat, but you're watching, thank you for being here. I totally appreciate it. I love this stuff. I would talk spreadsheets and comics and numbers all day long if I could, but I'd like to get to some of the other books I'm looking at and see how all of this works out in terms of just adding more books and seeing. So let's try a new book. And I do feel like I may have to adjust some of the formulas just to make sure I've got the calculations right. So how do I do this? I had this data in here when I started. How do I deal with a new book? So I'm going to close this, and we're going to go back. And let's pick out something else. Let me just start from the beginning. And the reason you start from the beginning, too, is because the auctions are sorted alphabetically, meaning they're also going to end in that order. They're not always precisely alphabetical. Sometimes, and by alphabetical, I mean title and issue number. Sometimes the issue number, I don't know if the seller feels like it's a better book or it's a key book and the keys are kind of at the end of this. I don't quite understand the order of things. But anyway, it looks alphabetical, and for the most part it is, but it's also sorted by items ending soonest. So we've got 804 listings to go through. I use the covers and just say, okay, Adventure Comics, not interested. Batman and Robin and so forth. Collector auctions, I have to check out as I'm headed to a comic show, but love to do a conversation on this later. Maybe we can expand it. Yeah, would love to. I hope you enjoy the show today. Would love to see what you got. I'm sure a video will be put out sooner than later. So thanks for stopping by Collector Auctions. For those that don't follow him or see him, watch his videos on YouTube, definitely check him out. Lots of, I would say, alignment with how we approach comic collecting, but has super fun hauls and lots of CGC unboxings by Collector Auctions. So check him out. And yeah, it'd be great to collaborate with him and just kind of talk about the process of kind of engaging with an auction, prepping for it thoroughly, and so on. Now, if I'm just coming back to the HipComic auction and I'm looking at this, again, I have to use my own comic book experience. There's nothing that's going to just jump out and say, these are the top 10 books to bid on. Because you do need to kind of care about what you're doing and be into the hobby to some degree. So that's kind of your foot in the door is Alpha Flight. And again, this is where I was saying things are not completely in the correct order. Alpha Flight 2 and then Alpha Flight number 1. Let's check out Alpha Flight number 1. Now, I personally think $56 for this book, raw, is too much. So that's my working theories, right? That this is where the analysis and the spreadsheet work, it's designed to guide you and it's designed to keep you honest. So if I'm looking at this book, Alpha Flight number 1, I think I have 4 copies of this raw. I think my highest graded, or well, personally graded, not professionally graded, personally graded copy is probably 9.2. And I bought, I think, 2 of these from Mile High and 2 from Atomic Avenue. All listed as near mint, and couldn't quite get the 9.4 out of them. I love this book. I think it's got a lot of potential, and it is what it is. $56, I think, is too much, but that's just my guess. So I'm kind of zooming in, going backwards. So I'm going to give it a quick assessment. Colors look pretty strong. I don't see really anything color-wise or color-breaking-wise on the cover. Looks pretty good. Back, general assessment. Again, I don't know if it's the lighting or what, but it looks a little tan or something at the top, but it doesn't look too bad. It actually looks pretty strikingly white. So that's my general assessment. And then kind of giving it a quick overview, I definitely see something in that corner, typically that's just a little bit of a tear coming around where the cover was wrapped. Sometimes CGC lets that go. Sometimes it's a little bit of a grade hit. So like if this were a 9.8 with that, you might get a 9.6. The thing I noticed too as I was rolling over is right here, it looks like there's some color loss to me. Almost like, I'm not saying the seller did this. I'm just saying what it looks like to me is almost like just some light erasing. Just there's some lifting of color there, it looks like to me. It just looks a little bleached. Same thing there, just all across there. It just doesn't look good to me. So that's where I'm like, ooh, 9.4 already, maybe. But it's a very, very strong high-grade copy. Down here, that corner looks okay. That's probably fine. But yeah, look at this. No color breaks. There's Nightcrawler. There's no issues there. So I'm talking over this, but I think this one went a little bit quicker. I'm not quite sure exactly. Maybe that's a little foxing. Hard to tell right in there on the left side. So 9.4, probably 9.4. That's kind of what I'm thinking. And I would say max 9.6. Maybe. Like, I gave it a 9.4. I was going to give it a 9.6, but maybe that. But this also concerns me, so maybe it's not a 9. Maybe it's just a 9.4, and maybe that's its max. And now that I think about it, it's probably accurate. Right? So grade low, hope for the best. So again, please feel free to jump in the chat if you're looking at these going, yeah, your grading's off, or what do you think the grade is? I think it's currently a 9.4 based on these scans, and it maxes 9.4. I really don't think there's much you could do to improve it other than some general light cleaning, but I feel like that's not going to overcome this corner and whatever color loss is happening. Again, the color loss could just be like a flash of the picture, but I won't know until I get the book in hand. But I don't know if I would send this book if it did have some color loss off for grading, because I don't think really there would be much value added. But I do want to track it just for the sake of, this example. But I know that I also would not engage with this book at $56. I'm looking for the deals that I talked about. So this is not a deal at $56, but is it true? So how do I insert this in here? So a lot of this I have to pull down to create a clone of the record. So I just do that, Control D, and let's see if the formulas hold up. And it looks like they do, except some of these are, yeah, this is what I was afraid of. So this should be an absolute replica of that first row, or the second data row. So something's not right here. So I have to see what didn't clone properly right here. Yeah, so the data, these data cells, they need to be constant, and you do that with Google Sheets with the $sign. So now if I pull it down, it should be exact. And then now, yeah. Okay, so now I know that the formulas and the calculations are correct. So what I need to do, and of course I have a master list already built of the title era sort of thing. So here, I'll expand it one last time and kind of show you what I'm talking about. But so if I were to just do this by hand, which again, I'm all about saving time, but if I did have to do this manually, it would be Alpha Flight number 1 from 1983, and there's no variant on that. And then this, again, I was copying and pasting, so I don't have to type in Alpha Flight, right? This is boring. But there it is, right? So now you see the max grade value is all of this stuff is being pulled in correctly. And yeah, you see a bunch of negatives here in terms of what you want to bid on and so forth. And let me just see how that's working. Oh, it's because of the grades. 9.4. But yeah, same thing. So essentially what this is saying is if you're going to get this book pressed and cleaned and everything, and it's going to come back as a 9.4 after all of those costs, it's not worth it. So not only is the $56 not worth it, it's the book in its condition is not worth it. And I just want to make sure all of this is accurate. And then also, here's what's interesting too. If you wanted to buy this book, it's super expensive, and I don't recommend it. But if you wanted to shoot your shot with this and hope that maybe I can get it raw from Mile High, and maybe it's a 9.8, and you're blind to the scan because they don't provide scans of the comic, you could buy it outright from Mile High Comics for $70 today. So the $56 is still less, but I think that's way too much for this book. Yeah, I'm just looking at my calculations. yeah, it's just not worth it. It's the total cost involved, right? So this is, I mean, it should be obvious, but where this is coming from is the fact that the 9.4 is only worth $47. And if you think about it, it's going to cost you $26 to grade it, 15 to clean and press, a couple of bucks to ship it, or $1 to ship it to you. And then with all of the discounts and everything that I want, I'm not getting them. So that's why everything is negative here. So I'll have to fix this. Like if it's negative, maybe it just says do not bid, something like that. It just says stay away. The other thing that I like to do is figure out how much time I have left on the auction. So I have to do a little bit of manual calculation here, but essentially I've got it ending in 6 hours and 38 minutes. And then I have to just copy and paste that in here. So that's ending at 4 o'clock. So then I know here I have 6 hours and 37 minutes left. So what I'm going to end up doing is resorting this by the time left actual to know which items are going to end first. So this one, and so I'm going to hide, let's see, this to this, because I'm not going to do that manually. I'm going to copy and paste from a master list. So in that condition, essentially it was like stay away, and you're like, well, why would you stay away? It might be worth $1. I'm not buying the raw books just to go, hey, I got a 9.4 raw and throw them in my bin and say, you know, maybe I can flip it for $36. It sounds like a good idea. Like I could win an auction for $1, and then I could take it to eBay and sell it for 10. If I'm not a flipper, so I don't flip books, and that's not what this is for. However, you could use the spreadsheet for those purposes to say, instead of looking at the CGC values, replace those with the raw, right? Again, this specific example at $56, you're going to be out of the range of raw anyway. So this book, I don't know why. Usually the books are available for less than fair market value. This one is unusually high, $56. So that's why I grabbed it as an example. So once I'm done here, I'll probably delete this to make sure it's off my radar. Okay. Let's see here. We've got, so that's Alpha Flight. Let's go back to a more realistic example. So again, we keep going through this process. How do we get faster and faster and faster? What we want to do is be able to quickly assess, quickly grade, drop in a little bit of tracking information and get in and get out, and then have a nice set of comics that we're going to keep an eye on throughout the day. One of the ways, that I would get faster is when I'm eyeballing the cover and the details and understanding like this is a book that I want, this is a book that I'll pass on, is the number of bids and the amount. Like I honestly, the Alpha Flight 1 caught my eye, but then as soon as I looked down and saw 21 bids, I'm like, nope, pass, not interested. If it was $5.60, okay, maybe, but still, based on my assessment, I wouldn't necessarily bid or track it, but it would at least have me click into it and grade it. I do like those early issues of Alpha Flight. Big fan of John Byrne. So, this is where it also, I might take 2 passes on this. So for this sort of live stream auction prep, I'm going to focus on more of the realistic books. But if I'm kind of doing this offline and I don't want to bore you, I would probably go back and I would click in Alpha Flight 2 and 19. I feel like regardless of that, kind of like thinking back of, if I just want books for the collection, sort of, I might throw a couple of dollars on each of these. But that's me, again, saying I'm going to throw out my own analysis and I'm just going to kind of do what I want. A couple of dollars for comic books that I know about already and I understand the values and I know maybe I'm trying to complete a run. That's my business, kind of outside of the spreadsheet stuff. So again, I'm taking the help that I'm getting and I'm saying, no, thanks, I don't need your help. For some of these other books, I do need the help. So I want to focus on those. So again, like these amazing adventures, I'll probably circle back and take a look at them. but not right now. I want to find another good example, probably another Amazing Spider-Man. And let's pick one here. We've got 107, awesome 20-cent cover, so I'm into that. 173, 174 Whitman variant. I'll probably stay away from that too. This is a kind of always been a weird cover. Got Mary Jane and Aunt May there, and Spider-Man's fighting the Gobgoblin, the Green Goblin, like exactly in the window frame there. And then they're back at it in 179 fighting outside and stuff. Let's see. Let's find a good one. Yeah, I love these. Like, none of these are real keys or anything. I don't know. For some reason, let's go with. Oh no, actually 189. This one I do like. I love the perspective on this cover. Just I don't know, something about it. So, and this is a John Byrne cover as well. But see what I'm saying? Like already, like my eyes were drawn right to the top. Like, so what I was thinking about the Alpha Flight. Is there really color loss, or is this like a flash photo? Like, I'm thinking, like, how is this person taking photos? Do they have their camera at the top? I'd have to look at all of their books to see, but that was interesting right there. Like, I don't think all of their books are experiencing the same color loss. But anyway, let's do this. ASM 189. So let's go ahead and get this in here. So I'd have to clone the row. See how fast we can do this. Clone the row, and then Amazing Spider-Man 189. I'm going to cheat because I've got my my descriptions all here in another sheet. So title 189, and I don't know the grade yet. Did that work? No. Oh, I didn't copy all the way over. That's why. There it is. Okay. Okay, so now this is already telling me it's probably not a book worth bidding on for the purpose of sending in to CGC. But let's take a look anyway. So yeah, first assessment, weird things at the top. I don't know what that is. Is it true color loss, or is it a flash from a camera? I'm not sure. Let's look at the back. Similar to the other ASM 186. Some dirt here above series. A couple of spots here. So it's either dirt or foxing. This could be ink staining. So kind of in general, still thinking about the 9.4-ish range. And then if I come in more detail here, looks pretty nice. Very, very strong. This is also typical of quality comics. Like, it's almost too good to be true. Very, very sharp, strong colors. Again, I just don't know what that is. That bothers me. That now you can actually see in the black of the webbing, you're seeing that white. So I do think it's color loss. So that looks very ugly. So I wouldn't bid on this one anyway, and the numbers are saying stay away. So what is the max rate on that one? 9.2. And my assessed grade is probably a 9. So again, a $32 to $46 book. You know, not worth it. Now, let's say the assessed grade was a 9.6 and the max is 9.8. Okay, now it's a different story. That's why those numbers were negative and then they would turn positive, is because it's just not worth it. Like, it's not worth the hassle to get that book in a 9.2. You can see right here, if you want that book in a 9.2, you can just go buy it for $46 in a slab. Now, if you're looking for filler, or you're looking to fill a run of Amazing Spider-Man, maybe you throw a few bucks on it, but again, you're ignoring what the data is telling you. And the data is telling you based on your grading assessment, stay away from this book. Right? So I'm not even going to bother bidding. And you'd have to do this, right? You have to spend the time and go through and actually assess the book. The one I was going to jump into before that is the next issue, 190. So I want to click in and see. Yeah, and I don't see any kind of flash photography related thing here. So this is better to me already. The only thing I'm seeing is right here in the E. There's something. It's weird. It's right aligned with Man-Wolf's knuckles, but there's something here. Could be some dirt. That could be cleaned. And then looking at the back, definitely see some folding here in the bottom left corner. Slight miswrapping, but not bad. I can't tell right down here if that's a tear or not, but looks okay. Up here, some sort of dot, like a little bit of dirt, something, just light tanning. You know, again, it's like the 8.5 to 9.2. Maybe this one's a 9.4. Let's take a closer look. Corner looks good. Here in the character box, price box, there's a the tiniest dot right there next to only, but I don't really see no color breaking issues. So that's a really strong corner for the comic. Spine looks okay. There's 2 color breaks right there. Probably already putting this in a 9.4. That corner's okay. Curled there, probably needs a press. Just straighten it out. And that's probably just a corner that could use a press. And then over here as well, if we get into some of the details again, kind of look above the children's pictures, there's just some dirtiness or something going on there. There's that dot. I don't know if it's a ballpoint pen or if it can just be wiped off with an eraser or something. Down here, ooh, we're getting close to a tear. So now we're definitely in the 8.5.9. And then is that a tear as well? Tough one. Go ahead and put in the chat if you want to shout out a grade. I'm thinking it's a 9. Probably a 9. Maybe it maxes out 9.4. So I'll come in here. And then as I do my copy and paste, then I can just eyeball. Yep, that's the book I'm looking at. So my assessed grade is 9. I would probably say it maxes out 9.4. And once the values update, again, another book to stay away from, where you're looking at it going, yeah, but for $3, who wouldn't want an ASM 190? I might be inclined to bid on that one, right? I might go for that. I don't know. Or if you wanted to just put them all at 9.8 and basically say, you know what does this look like if basically I don't know any better. I want my professional cleaner, presser, whatever. I want them to deal with it. And maybe it does max out. It's still telling me to stay away. Because, and why is that? Because the jump from 9 to 9.8 is significant. And what that means is that the bigger the jump, the less likely it is going to happen. Right? So if it was more like 9 to 9.2, that would be a realistic grade bump, but still at the max value. So like it would be more like this. So I think it's a 9.6 and it's a 9.8, something like that. And then you could look at that and go, okay, well, based on the 9.6 to 9.8, it looks like I still need to stay away from Alpha Flight in 190, but 189, because of that cushion in the 9.6, now that's a $30 book. But we're trying to keep our grading conservative and realistic. So let me undo this and put it back. I think that's where I was. 9.4. So not looking good for those ASM books here. Let me see if I can find another example, and then I'll probably wrap it up here soon. So if you do want to leave any sort of final comments in terms of, how you could get started with something like this, once I get to the point where I do have the the formula's kind of finalized and solid, I'll go ahead and make a template available for channel members. So you can grab the template and grab updated versions of the template as you prepare for your auction. So I'll do that. So if you're interested in joining the Moneyball Comics channel, there should be a join button down below unless you're on an iOS device, because I've heard that that's hidden. But you can always just directly go into my channel and there's a membership area where you can join, or you can always try it on the desktop. But any of these spreadsheets that I use, you're more than welcome to create your own based off of my ideas, or insert your own ideas to kind of keep track of things. But if you just want to save yourself some time, and time is money, I do make some of these available. Right now I have 2 spreadsheets out there. So this could be a third one that I would add soon. I think the 2 that are out there, it's which comics to buy, which comics are available right now in terms of the best value. So I have them ranked. So you could just open that spreadsheet, kind of eyeball good value picks. So that spreadsheet I make available for channel members. And then the other one I just added is the online store rankings. So I've talked about Atomic Avenue, I talked about Mile High Comics, but where do they rank in terms of being able to find books online? I make that spreadsheet available for channel members today. So if you join, you get access to those. So let's do one more as an example, and then I'll kind of call it here. Let's see. Yeah, these books here, like ASM 249, these Hobgoblin books. So 244, 245, and 249. I think like any Hobgoblin cover books I think are interesting. So we'll do one more and then we'll call it 250, also a great book. Let's look at 250. Great John Romita Jr. cover on this one. So quick assessment. Already I can tell top right corner has got some folding. Everything else looks pretty good. It's very, very nicely wrapped. Back looks okay. Again, just some light discoloration here. And I want to zoom in on that corner and see what we're dealing with. To me, it looks like a bite was taken out of it. So that's a tear. Additional kind of tearing. So what would I do with this one? I'm not even going to track it, right? I'm just like, nope, not bidding. Right, so the goal here is give me a list of books that I'm actually going to click into and check and bid on later. And I want to try and find one more. If you see one, put it in chat and I'll do it. 279, this is the first cover appearance of Silver Sable. So this one, let's take a look here. Quick assessment. Yep, spine ticks, which is typical in the Where is Spider-Man. This is where you'll see the ticks. Dirt along the back, so probably already in a sort of a situation with a 8.5 to 9.2 range. Like I said, that's probably your average. So probably pass on that one. Trying to find a good example that I actually would bid on and track. Let's go back a little bit. C255. This is a tough book. Yeah, so at first glance here, what's my initial assessment? My initial assessment is, okay, this one's a high-grade book, right? Just, this is clearly a super, super dark cover, and typically just all just beat up. But my first assessment is, wow, okay, this one has some potential. Not my favorite ASM cover, but pretty cool negative space treatment going on. So the front cover, I think, looks solid. Back cover, again, just my experience, looks very, very strong. I want to zoom in and see what's going on with that, but it looks like it's just a slight fold. So if I'm going to quickly go up and down, look at that, right? That's what I'm looking for. Some dirt that would, a dry cleaning could potentially get that out. Corners soft, but could that pass for a 9.8? I think it's probably 9.6 at worst, but possibly. I think that's just the page underneath. I think that's really strong. So this is very good. Well, not a VG, but this is the kind of book that I try to pick out from their auctions. Down here, this is sort of like mechanical warping on the page. I've seen this before. I do think humidity in a press helps with that. Down there, that is just a fold. It's not a tear, so that's pressable. But definitely as is, it's not a 9.8. Probably a 9.4 or 9.6. My goodness, I think it's a 9.6 as is, with the potential to be a 9.8. So this is more typical of a book where I get excited and I want to track. So I want to track it, and I think I was forgetting I have to go back and fix these URLs because I was just cloning the same URL. So I'll need to fix that as well so I can click on these. So these are all ASM 186s. So I just fixed this to be ASM 255. Now, I get excited because the book looks great, looks like it's in great condition, but what do I want to do? I'm going to grab the whole description, paste it in here, and change the assessed grade from 9.6 and a max of 9.8. And now this is an example exactly of a book that I do want to track and I do want to bid on and I want to actively participate. Now it has 6 hours and 32 minutes left. So 6:32, ending at 4:15 my time. So now I've got the time left as 6 hours and 31 minutes. So I have a minimum bid of $7.61. This is only at $1.30. So I definitely want to put that in, and I think I can copy and paste in there. Let's see. Yep. Didn't like the symbols. So maybe I'll change that in the spreadsheet so I can copy and paste, or just hand it. Yeah, 226. So let's end on a high note because there were several books there that didn't really fit the bill, let's say. They just weren't the books that I was interested in because of the condition. But this is what a lot of these sellers where they've got these sort of comic books in bulk, so to speak. They're just excuse me, they're just putting books in there and not grading them themselves. So there's an opportunity to find those books in the condition. So the goal of this is have more fun and enjoyment with the hunt in terms of assessing the book, looking at the condition, and spend less time looking up values and data. I understand that not everybody's into monetizing comic books, but it is what it is. It's part of the hobby. And I don't want to overpay. I don't want to overspend. And I always want to have some value built in to all of this based on the condition. So my take is always don't waste your time, because it is a waste of time to study market values and memorize. I know that book is $100. I just know it because I've seen it and I've studied a price guide. Don't do that. Spend your time looking at comic books, feeling them, opening them raw, reading them, and so forth, and understanding structurally how the book works, so that when you see a book online, you can more quickly assess it and then use a tool like the spreadsheet, put all the data, and have the actual bid ranges spit out. So that's the whole point of this. So let's end it here. Got about an hour and 15 minutes into this one. I appreciate you hanging out, watching this. I hope this was useful. For those that are kind of watching it afterwards, feel free to leave comments on this video. I'd love to get your take on kind of how you approach comic book auctions. Was all of this a waste of time? Do you know better? Do you just kind of go in and see it and just go, I know that I can get $5, $10, $20 for that book if I put in that bid. I'd love to hear more about what your process is. There's lots of different ways to approach it, but this one I think works for me. And I think it's going to save me some time. And also, in the end, the other benefit is you have this nice list of books that you're tracking where, like I said, you can come back later and have your items that you're tracking on the go. So a lot of flexibility there. Thanks for watching. Happy collecting, and see you next time.